California's latest lawsuit against the federal government, and specifically the U.S. Department of Agriculture, also known as USDA, and Secretary Brooke Rollins. Using the current federal shutdown as a scapegoat, USDA has unlawfully suspended funds for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, for the first time in the program's history, informing state agencies that the federal government will withhold all November benefit payments. Trump and Rollins are cutting off benefits for more than 41 million Americans, 41 million Americans, red states and blue states, folks who rely on SNAP to put food on the table, even though there are billions of dollars in contingency funds and other funds that could be used to provide SNAP benefits during the shutdown. They are doing this on purpose. It is deliberate. It is intentional. They have the funds. They're just not using them. The vast majority of SNAP recipients are families with kids, elderly individuals, and people with disabilities. These are our most vulnerable. Society should be judged on how we treat the most vulnerable. Trump gets an F for what he is doing here to our kids and to our most vulnerable Americans. Here in California, our SNAP program, CalFresh, supports 5.5 million Californians every month, including 1.9 million children. All of them are counting on this program. They're counting on their government to follow through on its promise and to provide the support that they need. In abruptly suspending SNAP, Trump and Rollins have broken the law. They have forced states to scramble to try and clean up the federal government's mess. And worst of all, they've left 41 million Americans unsure of where their next meal will come from. With today's lawsuit, our coalition of 23 attorneys general and 3 governors who are standing up for the people in their state have made it clear that we refuse to stand by and allow the Trump administration to arbitrarily and unlawfully do away with a decades-old safety net program, the country's most important tool for fighting against hunger. Before I talk further about this case, I want to acknowledge the incredible teams in all of our offices who worked diligently to put this lawsuit together, including working through the weekend. It has been common that working through the weekend and late nights, sometimes all-nighters, is something that our team is no stranger to. I'm grateful for them. I'm proud of them. They don't do it for the recognition. They do it for the mission. And at California DOJ, folks who are pursuing that mission includes our government law section, our special litigation teams. We wouldn't be able to serve our respective states without these incredible public servants. I'm grateful to be one of their colleagues and to lead our department. Which brings me back to this lawsuit and the unlawful suspension of SNAP benefits. I want to first back up a bit to explain the timeline here. On September 30th, ahead of the imminent shutdown, USDA issued a, quote, lapse of funding plan that stated that Congress's clear intent is that SNAP should continue, even if there is a lapse in federal funding. They said that on September 30th. The plan also stated that Congress, which created and funds SNAP, has provided multi-year contingency funds to provide for the benefits in situations just like this. This is what the contingency funds are for, to be spent in times like this. Based on 2 congressional appropriations, we believe that USDA has up to $6 billion in contingency funds and possibly more to fund SNAP. All they have to do is spend that money that is there for this purpose, but they're not. That's enough money to cover November's benefits. And there are other pots of money that USDA can access that could fund the rest of November's benefits. On October 1st, once the shutdown had begun, USDA sent state agencies a letter directing them to continue administering SNAP, including processing new applications and preparing November's benefits. 9 days later, in direct contradiction of those 2 earlier communications, USDA sent a new letter stating that if the shutdown continues, there wouldn't be enough funds for November benefits. Complete 180. The letter claimed that USDA had only just begun the process of fact-finding and information gathering to address the impact of the shutdown. It stated it needed maximum flexibility, was their term, during the shutdown, and directed us to withhold November benefit issuance files until further notice. Nothing was said about the contingency funds reserved for a situation just like this one. That seemed to be an inconvenient fact that they didn't want to talk about. Nothing was said about USDA's prior communication that said the opposite. They ignored their communications from just days earlier. Nothing was said about the families that would be left high and left dry come November. On October 24th, USDA sent another letter confirming that it was suspending November SNAP benefits. That same day, USDA issued a memo claiming that it had no legal authority to use contingency funds and that tapping into the available funds would jeopardize other federal programs that need to be funded. But USDA provided zero basis of any kind, zero authority to support that claim. The next day, the SNAP website blamed Senate Democrats for the SNAP suspension and claimed, quote, the well has run dry, end quote. Mind you, there is a contingency fund with billions of dollars. That's the well that is supposedly dry. We know that's absolutely false, that the well has run dry. That claim is wrong. It's a lie. The well has up to $6 billion ready to be tapped into. Trump and his administration are willing to put more than 41 million Americans at risk of hunger, at risk of food insecurity, at risk of malnutrition, if it gives them a new play in their twisted political game. They are playing politics.
This is the first nonstick with no coating. The Titanium Always Pan Pro.
The reality is that what the Trump administration is doing is illegal. The federal government has a legal obligation to provide SNAP payments to those who meet program eligibility requirements. The law is clear that USDA can't suspend SNAP benefits without first spending the money it has available, which it has not done. Instead of providing the benefits it can, doing the most good it can, USDA has unnecessarily and unlawfully suspended the program altogether without an adequate explanation or a plan. By failing to follow the law and fulfill its obligations, by flouting process and protocol required when dealing with federal programs and federal funding appropriated by the co-equal branch of Congress, by ignoring Congress's intent, by providing no clarity or further information to the states that actually have to run the program, despite our requests for more information, by failing to engage in any reasoned decision-making and failing to consider the impact their actions will have on our states or the health and well-being of millions of Americans. The Trump administration has broken the law again, which is why we're asking the court to make clear that this SNAP suspension is unlawful, to require USDA to use the funds available to provide as many benefits as possible and to prevent USDA from withholding benefits in November. Every American, regardless of political affiliation, should be outraged by the Trump administration's willingness to let more than 41 million Americans go hungry. Completely avoidable, not necessary, a chosen path. Cutting SNAP will leave families hungry, leading to malnutrition and dire health outcomes. When children go hungry, they struggle in school. They experience fatigue, depression, exhibit behavioral problems. Food insecurity results in higher healthcare use and costs, including more emergency room visits and hospitalizations, which will put undue strain on our healthcare systems and programs like Medicaid. In fact, lower income adults participating in SNAP have been shown to incur about $1,400 less in medical care costs in a year than those who don't participate in the program. The country's need for SNAP does not disappear just because USDA has abandoned its responsibility to fund it. Instead, families will be forced to turn to state and local governments, community organizations for the food assistance they need, none of which are equipped or ready to fill the massive hole the SNAP suspension creates. In California, food banks already help support 4.6 million Californians facing food insecurity, and they're already struggling to fulfill those needs in the face of other federal cutbacks, including $500 million cut in food deliveries earlier this year. Since the suspension was announced, our state agencies have been left to hold the bag. State agencies are required to continue operating our SNAP programs even when the federal government has suspended benefits. That means with little notice, our states have to continue processing applications, knowing the applicants won't receive the benefits they're applying for. We've had to spend our limited resources on creating urgent new messaging campaigns and delivering the terrible news to families that they won't get the help they need to buy groceries come November. We've been saddled with new administrative costs, and through it all, we don't even have a plan or clear direction from USDA. Meanwhile, our economy is about to feel the hit of SNAP's disappearance. Stores and farmers will lose out on the business they expect from SNAP recipients. In California, we're talking about 26,600 grocers, farmers markets, and other businesses that accept SNAP payments. USDA itself has estimated that every $1 in SNAP benefits generates more than $1.50 in economic activity, a 150% return for our economy now gone. The irreparable harm to families and individuals who count on SNAP, the harm to our states and state agencies, and the harm to our economy is immense and imminent unless USDA immediately reverses their decision. Trump and Rollins have made it clear that the millions of families who rely on our government for food assistance are not a priority. Kids who will be more focused on their grumbling bellies than what they're learning in school aren't a priority. Seniors, individuals with disabilities, and veterans, not a priority. Ending this government shutdown isn't a priority. Trump has made clear he's more focused on tearing down a historic building to build himself a gold-laden ballroom for lavish parties than ensuring American families can put dinner on the table. And the fact that Thanksgiving is mere weeks away is just salt in the wound. Just imagine the extravagance of Trump's Thanksgiving table while millions across the country don't know how they'll even buy a turkey. Trump and Rollins may be pointing at the shutdown as the cause of this disastrous suspension, but the USDA has historically continued the safety net program through shutdowns. We've been here before. This money has been spent before. It can and it must legally be spent now. As recently as 2021, the USDA and the Office of Management and Budget made clear that Congress intends for SNAP benefits to continue despite lapses in appropriations, and the USDA should use contingency reserves in that case. During the 2019 government shutdown, USDA acknowledged that contingency funds could be used.
Now, when we're at dinner, I just give my husband that little look, right, after my couple glasses of wine, and he just pops his little mint at
USDA's decision to suspend SNAP and desert more than 41 million Americans. It's untenable to think that the administration would stoop as low as letting people go hungry to try to win some political upper hand so they can bludgeon Democrats with it. It's time for the president and his administration to actually serve the people of this country and abide by the laws they swore to uphold. It's deeply disconcerting that 40 weeks into this presidency, California has already had to file 45 lawsuits against Trump and his administration, more than one a week. But that's the reality we're in. And you've got my word that my fellow Democratic attorneys general and I won't back down, whatever comes. We'll continue to stand up for our states, the people who live in them. We'll continue to take the federal administration to court when they break the law, violate our Constitution, and harm our people. If they break the law, we sue. If they don't break the law, we don't sue. It's that simple. And so we've done it 45 times so far. And before I turn it over to the governor and my colleagues here, I want to again thank the members of California DOJ's team who made this lawsuit possible. I want to shout out and thank Maria Buxton, Sebastian Brady, Liam O'Connor, Chris Kissel, Ryan Eason, and William Bellamy, a great team I'm proud to work with and serve with. And with that, please let me introduce Secretary Johnson, and we'll circle back for questions at the end. Secretary?
Good luck, Secretary, after that. Jesus Christ, that was good.
Yeah, it was-
Convinced me.
Absolutely.
I got nothing. Anyway.
And thank you. As I'm proud to stand here alongside the Attorney General and the Governor. I'm also devastated that we must fight to simply ensure people can put food on the table, especially those with the most need. And the Attorney General covered who we're talking about, 5.5 million Californians, again, primarily families, 1.1 million older adults over the age of 60, our elders, our grandparents, over 84,000 veterans, also part of those that are impacted, low-income college students and more. The other point of this is the cruelty couldn't be more apparent. While we have universal school meals in California, during November and December, our children are off for the holiday. And so while there's more need for resources in the household to support those children at this time, is when the federal government is deciding to take this action. So you heard from the Attorney General about the economic impact. CalFresh benefits in California are about $194 per individual or $333 per household. We also know, in addition to the health impacts and the food and nutrition impacts, that this is also disrupting poverty in California. The California poverty measure shows that poverty among all of Californians would be 3.1% higher if not for the nutrition safety net. That equates to 1.2 million more Californians in poverty without these resources. So again, we're taking action in this moment. I'm grateful that the governor has asked that we accelerate $80 million to the food banks and their networks across the state. We greatly appreciate the partnership of the California National Guard and Cal Volunteers, who's helping shore up the capacity of those food banks to get that food distributed. And we also need your help. For those of you who want to step up in this moment in your communities, we encourage you to visit cafoodbanks.org. You'll find the local food bank in your community. They'll let you know what specific donations would be most in need, and they'll also let you know how you can volunteer to be part of the solutions as we support California's values and how we support our neighbors across the state. All of these efforts, while again, we demand that the federal government follow the law. And with that, I'll turn it over to the governor.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you to the Attorney General. I appreciate the comprehensive nature of this lawsuit, and so I won't belabor or repeat or be redundant, except to say he's going to be successful. We will be successful. That's why we're here. We could talk about our contingency plans, and I'll add to that in a moment. But this is about as crystal clear an argument that I've seen of the 40 plus lawsuits that we have advanced. USDA shall, their own words, 930 memo just weeks ago. They said the reason we have the contingency plan is appropriated by Congress is to, in case there is a government shutdown, to advance these funds to address and mitigate this potential looming crisis. Period, full stop. Not complicated. So I want to applaud the Attorney General. I want to applaud those Attorney Generals across the United States, those three governors that stood up. I'm shocked, then again not, that other Republican state governors are not also joining this lawsuit. The impacts in their state, ironically, are disproportionate. Rural, red parts of this country, the impacts to these cuts are disproportionate. That said, the reason I'm not shocked is these are the same group of people in the Republican Party, representatives that supported the big, beautiful bill that looked to cut $186 billion from SNAP over the next decade. They approved that. They promoted that. This is their policy. This is what they support. This is in many respects a preview of things to come. $186 billion 10-year cut to food stamps to SNAP in the big, beautiful bill, impacting in California. We estimate 395,000 people that will lose their coverage because of the new criteria and new requirements in that bill. I find it also interesting that the Senate's going to be having lunch today. Lunch to discuss cuts to food programs. Hope they enjoy their lunch. Just paint that picture. Attorney General painted the picture of the ballroom. I just want to paint the picture, the situational reality of what is and what is not occurring in Washington, D.C. The Speaker of the House of Representatives remarkably once again lied when he said, well, it's government shutdown. There's nothing we can do about it. You can see the board right behind the Attorney General. There's been situations in the past consistently. This program has been funded during government shutdowns. He lied once again. He lied. It's also interesting to me because I spent a little time at a wonderful Jesuit university. If there was anything I remember about my 4 years with Father Cause, is that the New Testament and Old Testament have one thing dominantly in common. In Matthew, Isaiah, Luke, Proverbs, go down the list. It's around food. It's about serving those that are hungry. It's not a suggestion in the Old and New Testament. It's core and central to what it is to align to God's will, period, full stop. I say that because these guys need to stop the BS in Washington, D.C. They're sitting there in their prayer breakfasts. Maybe they got an edited version of Donald Trump's Bible and they edited all of that out. I mean, enough of this. Cruelty is the policy. That's what this is about. It's intentional cruelty, intentionally creating anxiety for millions and millions of people, 5.5 million here in our home state. So again, our state of mind is pretty clear. We're going to win this lawsuit. And I want to thank the Attorney General and his team for outstanding job putting together the arguments and putting together the partnerships and the coalition to advance this lawsuit. I'll close briefly. In the absence of that success, California has fast-tracked the distribution of $80 million to the 50 food banks, the spoken hub wheel that we have. This system networks that support about 2,500 pantries across the state. We fast-tracked the distribution of $80 million. Just last week, we had 397 members of Cal Volunteers that were sent out to support food banks across the state of California. Hundreds more will be deployed as needed. And we also called up the National Guard, 35 National Guard men and women. And I hope you saw some videos and some photos. Proud to be there. Proud to be the good guy.
Is when the federal
Stop buying generic Viagra if you're over 60. You qualify for 9 tablets of 100 milligram generic Viagra for
SNAP benefits to Florida Californians and to all of the 20
Contributors, or contributions rather, have been received. $38 million in small dollar. It just blew past our expectation. And so we have the budget, period, full stop, to complete what we set out to do, which was to be successful and win Proposition 50. I admit, and I appreciate the question, it's the first time, I don't know, likely to be the last time, that I've ever said, stop, please don't send any more money. I don't know many elected officials have ever been able to lay claim to that, period, full stop. And I said, just, period, full stop. And I said, just, $10, $20, particularly now in light of everything we've been discussing here today about food insecurity and the like, is a lot of money to people. And so I said, please keep your money or redirect it to other causes. And we began to orient some consideration to that in Indiana and what the governor just did with a special session there, which is extraordinary, considering the coercion that's gone on in Indiana to do this mid-decade redistricting and to other states and other causes. So that's it. But I also made it crystal clear. It doesn't mean we've won the campaign. Quite the contrary. It just means we're being honest with people. We don't need the money. But the money that has been raised is going to be utilized for a field campaign, which is one of the biggest in state's history, and to make sure we deliver on what we've been promoting. So we made the point we're running the 110-yard dash, not the 90-yard dash. It's all about get out the vote now. But the low dollar money, we just don't need at this moment.
Mr. Governor, to follow up on that, I wonder in this final week, the home stretch, do you have plans to be out on the campaign trail again?
Or yesterday, last night, today, every day. No, that's all I've been doing. I mean, I've been all over the state. Just got in late last night from Southern California and a number of events. We were in San Jose just a few days ago doing events and get out the vote. And look, this is, it's familiar time of the year for a lot of us. And so a week or so left to Election Day. And to me, everything's on